I think we're gonna get started here. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Taylor, and I'm the event assistant for McNally Robin Booksellers here in Saskatoon. This event is being held on Treaty 6 territory, which is the land of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota, and homeland of the Métis Nation. As we listen to our speakers share their words today, may we also recognize the Indigenous stories that have been shared on this land since time immemorial. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Saskatoon launch of First Light, Last Light by Glen Sorestad, published by Shadowpaw Press. Joining us as guest host is Dave Margoshes. Thank you to both Glen and Dave for being here tonight, as well as Shadowpaw Press for collaborating on this event with us. Please note that this event is being live streamed, so just be aware of the webcam to your right. I'd also like to take this time to encourage you to silence your phones for the duration of the event. If you would like to buy copies of First Light, Last Light, we have some on the desk right where you first walked in. We aren't going to do a traditional signing table tonight. Instead, we have some pre-signed copies. If we run out, or if you'd like them personalized, we'll take your name and number after the event, get them signed, and have them ready for pickup in the next few days. Our host for tonight is Dave Margoshes. Just Dave. Okay. Dave has published 20 books of fiction, nonfiction, and poetry. His work has appeared widely in literary magazines and anthologies in Canada and beyond, and has been nominated for and won numerous awards. In 2022, he was the recipient of the Lieutenant Governor's Lifetime Achievement Award. His most recent work, A Simple Carpenter, was published in 2024 by Radiant Press. Dave lives on an acreage near Saskatoon. Glen Sorestad is the author of 18 books of poetry, many short stories, and is a co-editor of numerous anthologies. He has given over 300 public readings of his poetry in every province in Canada, in many parts of the United States, and in Europe. Sorestad served as the first Poet Laureate of Saskatchewan from 2001 to 2004, and in 2001 received the Saskatoon Book Award for his poetry book, Leaving Holds Me Here. He was awarded the Queen's Globe Jubilee Medal in 2003. In 1975, Sorestad and his wife Sonia co-founded the literary publishing house Thistledown Press in Saskatoon. Over to Dave.
I'll introduce publisher Ed Willett, who wants to say a few words.
Don't need a mic. Hi, my name is Edward Willett, and I am the publisher of Glen's book through Shadowpaw Press. I just wanted to introduce you to Shadowpaw Press in case you're not familiar with it. It's a fairly new publishing company. It started in 2018. I had a couple of books I wanted to publish, a collection of my own short stories and my grandfather-in-law's First World War memoirs. I thought I would just self-publish them, and then Heather Nickel from Your Nicholsworth Publishing said, "No, you should start a publishing company," and I have not thanked her properly for that. But now I am a member of the Association of Canadian Publishers. I'm a member of the Literary Press Group of Canada, and so a traditional publisher. And one of the interesting things I've discovered is I publish a lot of different genres. I publish science fiction and fantasy, which are what I write. But somehow I've also ended up publishing literary short fiction by people like Dave Carpenter and Dwayne Brenna, publishing poetry by Glen Sorestad. I published a lot of Saskatoon authors, which is kind of interesting to me. I have way more Saskatoon authors than I do of Regina authors. So if you're interested in Shadowpaw Press and the many books that I published, still coming out this year, there's another collection of short literary fiction by Betty J. Hegarat, who's a Calgary author, and that book was edited by Dave, who, along with Dee, they're both on my editorial board. Some other very talented people. So if you'd like to know more about Shadowpaw Press, I have some business cards over there by the books. You can pick those up and visit the website. And hopefully you will find that I have published a great many books and you would like to buy a copy of every single one of them for everybody you know for Christmas. That would be great. So enjoy the reading.
I think there's several people in this crowd who have been published by Shadowpaw either with an original title or as a reprint. Anyway, there are a few others. So it's an up and coming press, and I've added a number of books for it. And I can say he's very easy to work with. Whatever that's worth. So anyway, I wanted to tell you that my job here is to introduce Glenn, but he's already been introduced, so I don't really need to say much. But I will. First on his warm-up act. So I'm going to read a few poems. I also want to mention that this is a historic night. This is a two-cane night. Probably, and between the two of us, we're probably the oldest act that Polly Robinson has ever had. So I'm going to read a few poems. Can everybody hear me okay?
Need more volume, Dave.
Oh, she's got the controls there. How about now? A little bit more. Yeah. Turn on your hearing aids. To like to write poetry about things that happen, not just ideas that I have. I was in Vancouver recently, and at the airport, I was on sidewalks, and my feet got tangled up, and I fell down, hit my head, and no great damage done. There's not much in there, but a lot of blood. So I was the ambulance people insisted on taking me to the hospital where I got 14 staples in my head. 14 staples. That's what it took to stitch my head back together after the fall. There still were cracks with dreams and visions of grandeur spilling out and metaphors. The floor was littered with similes and allusions, carpets soaked with good intentions. There was scant attention paid to the cause of the fall, the dimensions and directions the body took as it tumbled through space for its inevitable conclusion. Head bone and floor bone in concussive embrace. All that swept aside in the flood of blood, the sweet intensity of pain. Are you all right? Someone asked, as they always do. Question answering itself with a lopsided grin, which for the moment, just a touch more lopsided than usual. I'm going to read tonight have been written in the last year or so. But this one was written the day after Halloween, which, if you recall, was right after the provincial election and right before the federal election. Couldn't ask for a more scary night. With neglected apples and oranges sit in their bowl by the door, dejected demeanor of a jilted sinner. Tatters of candy bags still strewn on the doorstep, like a shredded dream. Laughter of noisy children walk away, bringing in the soft reminder of what lies ahead. A week ago, we and our neighbors trooped to the polls where an unwanted result lay like a serpent beneath our feet. And our American cousins faced a similar choice last night, with even more disaster waiting in the wings. For Halloween, the night of the dead, to lie between these two auspicious dates was a stroke of genius beyond anything Yeats or even Homer could imagine. Somewhere in the distance, a bell tolls, and as so often been prophesized, ask not for whom, or when, or why. Mirror image. The bathroom mirror is my confidant. She sees me at my best and my worst. She peers into my mouth as I brush my teeth, sympathizes as I struggle to comb one particularly reluctant lock into place. She frets about the lines and around my eyes, new ones almost every day, and the shadows beneath them. When I dress, she makes sure my collar is folded neatly back, the crease in my pants sharp. If there's a spot on my shirt, coffee perhaps, she supervises as I scrub it out. Finally, as I prepare to face the day, adjusting my face, my smile just the proper seasoning of rye, she beckons me to draw closer, close enough for my breath to condense, fogging my image. That's when she whispers in my ear, secrets only she and I share, reminding me of who I truly am. Against the wind. The dawn has emerged into a cloudless sky, and what's barely a tender caress of wind on my face when I step outside with Jake for our morning walk. Jake is my dog. The deep piles of snow have all but melted away, leaving stubborn patches of ice, barking to catch my foot, as if I'm not careful, but I am. And Jake sets off ahead of me like the advance guard of a reckless army, pausing every 100 meters or so to see if I'm keeping up. At my age, a cane, a third leg, every step I take is against an invisible hand seeking to hold me back, slowing, but not stopping. I progress down the driveway to the gate, then a slow turn back again, sight, fire in the wood stove, perhaps, breakfast on the table, the wind calm as a lover's kiss. The shortage of mercy. Morse code on the windowsill this morning. The red-headed woodpecker at the breakfast table. Beak sharp as a school teacher's eye. No mercy for the insects buried beneath and inside the withered wood of the sill. There's a shortage of mercy these days on campaign trail and warpath, and in the battle travel barn where generations of feral cats have found homes amidst moldering bales of straw and neatly stacked wood for the fire. Just outside, weasels and skunks skulk, intent on a kitten for lunch. It's a war zone out there, and there are no white flags. Change is coming, blowing in the winds of autumn. This morning, the third day of the campaign, the leader of the opposition is addressing crowds of angry nurses weary from a brutal night at the overcrowded Rouge, while the premier is meeting with businessmen from Gabfest, rich with their concerns, taxes and restrictions. There, in a nutshell, is the blueprint for the coming month in Saskatchewan, all about money and how it's spent. To the south, Hurricane Helene took 6 states in her mouth and spit them out. In the Holy Land, the winds of terrifying tools being traded, tit for tat, peacemakers impotent, mute, their arms raised in prayer or surrender, tangled in clouds of smoke. Change is coming, yes. Wind has other things on its mind. No answers. Phones are ringing, pagers calling, but no one is on the line. There are no answers. Radios are fallen silent. Even the static muted. Above the plane of silence, though, a distant cry can be heard. Bells are ringing over the Holy Land, in Lebanon, in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Israel, in every village, camp, kibbutz, town, city, in the synagogues, mosques, and churches. But no one answers these bells. The Fertile Crescent is littered with bodies of the unjustly dead, laid out head to toe. They could circle this weary old world, and their cries would ring all the way to heaven. And still, the bells toll. The haunted bells, the hungry bells, the bells of victory and defeat. And speaking of heaven, God must be smiling. If God is listening, then surely God must be smiling. Smiling at the impudence, the impatience, the attitude, and the gratitude. Smiling at the beauty of one stride, one footstep after another. Smiling at the power of healing. Smiling at the exhilaration of speed and the thoughtfulness of going slow. Smiling at the beat of drums, the melody of geese overhead, smiling at the purity of earned exhaustion, finish line, smiling at the miracle and beauty of the body, fashioned, as they say, in God's own image, smiling at the humble acceptance of everything that is offered. And I'll end with this, breathless. At the brink of life, we slide into light, breathless. And breathless, we slide back into darkness. In between light and dark, in the long curving road, leading at once nowhere and everywhere, we struggle along, pausing now and then to catch our breath. And when we do, there at our command, its lips trembling, stuttering something about love. Thank you. Well, Glen Sorestad. I edited this book, and it was a pleasure, a delight. Glen is not the world's greatest poet, but he's one of the best, in my opinion. And this is his 70th. He's lost track. He's published a lot of books of poetry, and each book has 100 poems in it. That means a hell of a lot of poems that he's written. But the thing I really want to say about Glen, because first Poet Laureate of Saskatchewan, et cetera, everybody knows about that. But what is sometimes forgotten is his role in the creation of Thistledown Press, which in the early 70s, with creation of Coteau in Regina and Midwest in Edmonton, and Turnstone and Winnipeg, and a few others, really changed the literary climate of Western Canada and allowed the tremendous blossoming of literature and growth of writers in this province and the other Western provinces to happen. This guy was one of the pioneers. So we shouldn't forget that. So without further ado, Glen Sorestad.
Thank you, Dave. And thank you to all of you who have come out tonight and sharing a little time with us and celebrating another book to be added to the McNally Robinson bookshelves. I have a couple of words of thanks that I want to dispense with first. And I want to thank McNally Robinson, who hosts the event, because I really believe that here in Saskatoon, we are should be so thankful for having a bookstore that provides a regular opportunity for readers and writers to get together. And that to me is so important. So thank you to Jason and to Taylor, who hosted the readings here. And thank you for doing all that you do to make us as writers feel that we are important too. Thanks to Ed Willett, who has spoken to you already, Shadowpaw Press. I'm not sure whether I'm his first poet, but I hope I'm his best poet. And to Dave Margoshes, I have a very special thank you, because Dave, I asked to read through my manuscript and see whether there was a book of poems that could come out of it. And he ended up taking it to Shadowpaw and getting it published. And now you can't ask more from an editor than that, can you?
By the way, what's the commissioner over there?
We'll talk about that. Anyway, Dave, without Dave, this book would have been possibly not published. And so I'm very thankful for that. And I also have to say that I'm very, very thankful to my long-suffering and always supportive and rock-solid wife, Sonia, without whom I know I would have quit many times before this project was finished. So the book is her fault. So let's go on into the book. And I'm going to start with a couple of poems about my parents. The first one is called The Straightener of Nails, and it's about my father. Whenever my father spotted a nail no longer true and discarded it as useless, he always picked up the reject to carry along with him to where he kept an old tobacco can, where the off-kilter joined the collection of cripples needing his attention. It was a task for another day. I was too young to understand his reason for doing this, nor to fathom what satisfaction he received for his slow and deliberate care in returning each nail to true. This was when my father's livelihood was driving his car down gravel or dirt roads, selling fuller brushes, then Electrolux vacuums, Nutty Club confectionaries. He eked a meager wage, but his heart was never in it. His honesty and regard for others roadblocked sales, and he could never pressure anyone to buy. Rainy weekends, I would find him in his workshop, happy with his hammer and his tobacco can, working against time to set things true, the only way he could. My mother had a birthday in the worst time of year, January, mid-January. January 17th. I don't know why I remembered Mother's birthday, especially when my memory has sprung more holes than a bullet-riddled prairie stop sign. And considering that she has been gone for over 25 years now, and were she alive to celebrate this birthday, she would be 117 years young. But mothers never grow old. They never die either. Mothers are always with us, always present in the words that leap unbidden from our mouths, in the manner we wield a potato peeler or tie our shoelaces, in a host of melodies that hum and have been embedded into the fiber of who we are. Some days I am almost certain I hear her voice arguing with herself, as I recall from childhood. But of course, I realize the voice is my own, just as I recognize why I have, and will remember, as far as my memory will take me, the importance of this midwinter day. Sonia and I have 4 children. The eldest, Evan, was a casualty of the dreaded COVID period, although he did not die of COVID. He died of cancer. He had 3 sons. He has 3 sons still living. And this poem is something I had to write for them. What I want to tell my late son's 3 sons. I know your dad is gone from your life a full year, and you wonder just what you are expected to feel now that you have passed this unwanted moment in your early lives. I've been where you are, and I may not know much about how we best honor the father whom death has stolen. But I do know this. It is quite all right if you are unable to think about your dad whenever you are alone, without tears. Even if you have not yet cried through your loss, just know that the time for those tears is unlimited. They may be prompted forth when you least expect them. That too is quite all right. There will be times when this absence will appear as a fierce ache that will not leave, as if you've lost an arm or leg. Just know this is all part of who you are, of who you will always be. One day, you will share stories with your own sons or daughters about the grandfather they will never get to know. You will be telling them, without using the words, how much you miss him, how much you love him. Missing a father is normal. It has no expiry date. This poem is called Gene Gifts, hyphenated word, Gene Gifts. Why do I keep writing these memories, real or imagined, of my father, now gone over 6 decades from my life? Is there anyone left alive with reason to doubt whether my own recollections bear even slight resemblance to the man? I can only tell you that though he left me, a young man of 22, about to embark on a wondrous life with a wife and 4 children, he always remained unseen, but a presence I could recognize in my own admonitions or encouragement to my family. In my fears and in my sadness, I have outlived his years by 2 full decades, yet I know he is there, though it seems he stands apart from me, his blue eyes unflinching, as I recall them in childhood memories. The year is not so distant when both of us will become simple memories of others who may or may not try to capture in words what it means to carry inside you the color of eyes, the manner of speaking, the tilt of head. All those traits one recognizes as having been passed down to me, gene gifts to the child. Excuse me, I've had a bout with the fall cold or whatever it's called. This is a poem that comes out of the COVID period. It's called Stay in Touch. How often have we uttered these words with friends or kin as we bid them a safe trip? Then draw them to us, enclose them a moment, as if we need that physical certainty, the other's heartbeat, on the unthinkable possibility that this embrace could be the last. Perhaps it is our desire to keep the ones we love safe by saying stay when we have already acknowledged they must leave. Stay in touch, we implore, because love is every bit as physical as it is psychological or spiritual. We should not need a pandemic to verify the truth of this. Okay, I'm going to change the mood a little bit here. Something a little lighter. This is a poem based on my relationship with another fellow here in town that many of you will probably recognize in the poem. It's called Night Out. My friend and I lounge on bar stools in a micropub packed wall to wall, snug as brown bottles in cardboard cases on a clattering bottle line. Tin rains. Conversation loses to spittle exchanges. We slowly nurse pints of hoppy lager and survey the thronged table clusters. Unwanted reality insinuates its way to our stools. Everyone here may well be less than half our 70+ years. Some appear too young to vote, let alone carouse. So what are we doing here other than having a drink? The bartender offers. He wants to know whether he should pour us another, though we have several swallows left. My friend dons his most disarming face and murmurs loud enough for the bartender, "We've been let out." Long pause. For the evening, you know. His eyebrows arch theatrically, wide-eyed, as his voice slips into conspiratorial tones, and we're both off our nets tonight. The young man guffaws, as if to say he knows when his leg is being pulled. Still, he edges away, glancing back as he retreats to the refuge of safer patrons, their heads bowed in discreet silence over their Androids and their iPhones. And this one is called Annual Medical. There I am, slumped on the edge of the examining table, book in hand, stripped to my boxer shorts, reading poetry. Who knows how late my turn will arrive in the carousel of medical appointments. Then my doctor raps once, opens the door, walks in, shakes my hand, and wants to know not how I'm feeling, but what am I reading? A book of poems written by a friend, I say. I pass it to him. He examines the cover, opens it, reads the inscription, smiles, then asks, "Which poem would you recommend I read?" I find a poem. He reads, praises the vivid imagery. I read a line from another poem about the sound of the strap in the voice of the school principal. We agree, it resonates. When at last he addresses the reason I'm here in my briefs, he inquires how much walking I've been doing. Every day, 30 to 40 minutes, I say. He approves. I tell him, Lincoln declared, "The best doctors you will ever see are your right leg and your left leg." He agrees, claims every study about the link between walking and health is conclusive about benefits. He says he enjoys biographies of notables, his favorite, Gandhi, another, Lincoln. He admires how the famous president rose from poverty to greatness. He says Lincoln's devotion to serving inspired him to be a family physician. I am thinking my annual medical is shaping up as the first literary seminar our Medicare will cover under the guise of an annual physical checkup. Just at that point, he slowly begins to stretch that evil latex glove up over his right hand. I roll over onto my side. I think my voice is starting to give out here. So here's one to finish off. And I'm going to pass the book over to Dave, if he would read one or two of his favorites from the book. This is called Bulldozers. The bulldozers have come and gone. I should preface this by saying this is pretty typical of what has happened to a lot of Saskatchewan farms and farmland. The bulldozers have come and gone. Over days and weeks, they have erased much of my childhood, erased every trace, house, barn, garage, every outbuilding, gone. We inter our own history under the sham mound of progress. Every tree and shrub that burst with songs of finch and thrush, animal paths that interlaced the woods and held together each small biotic world connected with its adjoining neighbors, gone. Every fallen log, every hillock, abandoned beaver dam, or forgotten indigenous grave, leveled. Each depression filled, evened, to form a seamless bed for some yet to be determined cash crop, to feed the future with obliterated history. Gone. I hold on to these memories the bulldozer could not find. Each image will be buried with me. Who then will remember? Now that the bulldozers have come and gone. Thank you. Since Dave and I are admirers of each other's poetry, I am now taking the liberty of asking Dave to read one or two of the poems that he's particularly enjoyed.
It's an honor. It's an honor, Glen. My father's voice. My father had a great singing voice. I have no memory of this on my own. One of my maternal aunts conveyed this genealogical tidbit to me. And when I seemed surprised, firmly insisted his voice was not only beautiful, that he knew how to project it to good effect. Yet somehow my father's voice appears lost to me. I remember nothing of his singing, and when I learned about this, my father had been dead for half a century. Do I fail to remember his singing because I never paid enough attention to absorb my own soul? See, because my memories are dominated by an older man who was 40 when he married, a man who grew increasingly taciturn and introspective as he neared the end of his life, a life cut short in early 60s by bowel cancer. I remember coming upon him at times, hearing him humming to himself, often whistling in a tuneless fashion, only when he seemed capable of appreciating. But he aware is the beautiful baritone my aunt adamantly insisted he had. I've been a singer all my life, so I assume I have my father to thank for whatever musical talent he passed along, though my thanks fall upon deaf ears. This is just one of many regrets about my father I had borne. Since his premature leaving when I was only 22, regrets that time this tumultuous rage make more acute. I've spent part of my life as a writer, seeking and finding my own voice. And now, here in my own later years, I sing less, write less, and spend time pondering matters like my father's singing, the inherent shortcomings of memory, and the faint voice that lies somewhere just beyond the rim of consciousness, a voice I want so much to hear. Is that whiskey or what? Good glass of whiskey. We both drink a lot. Now, what about my father's singing voice is immediately followed by a poem called The Whistler. My father loved to whistle. When he was off alone working on one project or another, you might well have been drawn to his odd, unidentifiable sounds before realizing my father was making them. My aunt told me my father had a powerful baritone, but as he aged, he sang less and less. So I remember little singing, much more of his whistling, which was a different matter entirely. This whistling, when he was alone, was by no means virtuosic. You might have called my father a closet whistler, unintentional, the sound akin to praying or chanting, semi-tuneless, at times reminiscent of the sound wind makes when it sets telephone wires thrumming. I don't know when he began this private, tuneless whistling, but I do know he was capable when he chose to whistle recognizable melodies with a touch of musical verve. I would happen upon him when he became conscious of my presence and stop his whistling then, and either speak to me or busy himself with what he was doing. I never thought to ask about this peculiar whistling. Some days, my wife questions my humming sounds and wonders why I can't just sing like ordinary people. And I'll read just one more. Three Graves. In this reading. I like this one. Three graves. My uncle insisted 3 indigenous graves were located on one of his grain fields. He said they had become difficult to see after decades of the cycle of cropping, followed by summer fallowing, before again seeding the most current crop. As a teen, I cultivated that very field, 60 plus acres lying west of the creek that split the quarter section into near halves. Perched on the tractor seat, I scanned the field ahead for boulders or obstacles or the unexpected appearance of animals. But I admit, I was also determined to locate the disappeared mounds that marked the final resting place of 3 people we never knew, who died long before my uncle sowed his first wheat kernels on land those earlier people knew differently. Several times I'd stop, dismount, walk to a spot that appeared from the tractor to possess the imagined contours. Each time I climbed back up and reseated myself, disappointed. Still, I continued to rest. In the right light, I was sure I'd see them. That was over 70 years ago. Those graves remain there where they've been, unmarked and otherwise unremembered, unless some family sustains them. My uncle is dead. Those graves live in my memory. Keep them for us all.
Thank you, Dave.
We have a little bit of time. If anybody wants to ask a question, to Robert, you're always up first.
This one's for Glenn. Do you ever fear that the book of poems you're writing is going to be your last one?
Do I fear it?
We don't know the question.
Or do you fear it or sense it?
Sorry, could you repeat the question for everybody? I don't think everybody heard it.
Yeah. Do you ever fear or sense in the book of poems you're writing that it might well be the last one?
I think about the possibility that it could be the last one. Yes, I don't consciously make any, or I haven't consciously made a decision that this is or will be the last one. But I know that at my age, I'm feeling that I have less and less to say.
I was wondering about your title in that regard, first light, last light. So I'll dismiss my interpretation. I like yours better.
You know, if I could toss in a few cents worth, I think all writers think their new book is their last book, or might be their last book. I think I always do, and I'm a lot younger than Glenn. I think
Everybody is.
yeah, everybody's a lot younger. That's true. No, but seriously, I think every writer hopes that the last will be the one that is the balance. You know, this is the one that's going to win the Nobel Prize. You know? And it might be my last. Any other questions?
Well, I'll ask a question. Glenn, I know you're an avid Buckminer fan. You and Calder hold forth with your brilliant emails. Why is it I've never read all from you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Question is, why haven't you written a Rough Rider book?
I keep business and pleasure separate.
Have you ever included any of your grandfather, either of your grandfathers in your writing?
Yes, I am.
I wrote a little collection of poems that was called Dreaming My Grandfather's Dreams. That was about my grandfather who came from west part of Norway. And we had a chance, my wife and I, to sleep in the home that he had in Norway. And first home was sleeping in the house of the grandfather. So it wasn't a huge number of poems, but it was nonetheless sparked by one grandfather. And I have written about the other grandfather. One of my first and maybe most successful early poems came in about 1979. I wrote a poem about my grandfather who played fiddle. It's a poem that I guess it may even be in the selected poems that was published in 2001.
Yes, I asked that because my mother's father and his father were both writers of sorts and poets. And as a child growing up, I often had the experience, especially with my own grandfather, to hear his writing and listen to him recite and tell stories. So that was the reason I asked.
Are there any other questions? I think very sensitive. And it's this. I think that people think the thinking process is one of the richest richest aspects of publishing a book. You had the chance, of course, to work with a great editor in Margoshes. I'm wondering, Glenn, if you can tell us what you learned about your work well through the process of writing out. I know.
The question off because I believe in the editorial process very much, and I was very happy to have Dave as an editor because I know that he is had a lot of respect for my poems, so I listened carefully, and I think I took almost every suggestion he had and amended the poem in one way or another, the way that I thought would be more in keeping with what he was looking for.
But what about those poems that I suggested we kill?
Don't forget those.
Tears.
I haven't come for years.
One more question. When you say you feel you're finding fewer things in poems, but it seems to be from this collection that you're doing recapturing the distant past. That's something that you and I at our age, Bob Curry's poetry does the same thing, talking about parents, talking about early days, talking about the past. And, when you get to our age, as I say, we do think a lot about that. And a lot of the past is almost as vivid as the present is in some ways. And I think that this is what you may not think you've got 2025 ideas popping on, but you have very valuable insights into your past and everybody else's past.
I would agree with that, Robert. And the reason is that I find myself discovering things about my own parents long gone by reliving certain pieces of my childhood, and I think you learn about yourself a great deal, but you're also learning some of the things that you didn't really understand about your parents and about what they were going through at the same time.
So that is unfortunate. Thank you both for coming to speak to us today. Again, any of the books that you want to personalize, please name and number. Thank you.